Alright guys, welcome to the new unit comparisons analysis should you pull for our brand new New Year's units. Happy 2019 to you guys watching. I hope you guys all had a good time and the best wishes going forward. Let's start off by conjoining our community. Twitch viewers, say hello to those on YouTube, and YouTube comments, feel free to leave a comment for those on Twitch. Share the love. Alright, so as usual, I want to preface this if you've never watched a comparisons analysis should you pull video. Some subjects to consider. Most of this stuff is aimed at endgame content, considerations that you do for the endgame. When I say that, I mean like arenas, arena assault, ether raids, and abyssals to a lesser extent, PvE content as well. It's more or less just trying to give you a perspective on whether these units are truly valuable to you or not by considering other options in the 3 and 4 star pool. So that's pretty important to keep in mind. This is not supposed to be about whether you're going to pull your favorite unit or not, or whether it's hype. This is not what it's about. So with all that being said, let's talk about Coon Throw first. So Coon Throw is a red sword flyer, and if you've watched my impressions video, you know I'm not really too impressed. Red sword flyers are honestly not that much of a saturated pool, but her stat spread is close enough to the unit I'm going to compare her to, which would be Pala on the far left there. You probably have some Palas, you may even have Sheeta, and those units are more than enough comparable to somebody like Gunnthra. Now, I do realize that Gunnthra has a preference weapon, which does make her stand out quite a bit. Like, that preference weapon is pretty useful for debuffing if you want Gunnthra to be the sole debuffer. And that's the key word I want to say here. If she is the sole debuffing unit, then that's fine. And you would need a lot of merges for you to be using her like an arena or something, or the very least you'd use her as an arena assault check. So I don't really like value Gunnthra as like a one-off. Like, she literally is a one-off. That's the thing. You just use her in like arena assault and just do a lot of debuffs. And that's really the extent of it. In ether raids, she'll have like 2 weeks of glory or 3 weeks of glory as a bonus unit, man. That's pretty much it. See, when you play an arena, you're going to already have things like chill defense. You're already going to have things like chill attacks. Sorin comes to mind. You know, these might end up being seals. And those chills are just objectively better than Gunnthra's weapon, which debuffs by 4. So that's the weakness. There is a little bit of control involved with Gunnthra, and that's it. So as a really high investment unit, I don't really recommend Gunnthra beyond that. But her stat spread is similar enough to somebody with Pala with investment that it comes pretty close. A plus speed Pala with the Bane being less relevant. You don't necessarily have to use White Wing Blade. I just put it in there for flavor. You could use something like Slaying Edge, you could use something like Wodao, Armor Smasher. These are all other things, and honestly that gives you the flexibility in the weapon. Units without preference weapons can score the same as those with now by combining a 300 SP C skill that Gunnthra and Hrid have, combined with the 300 SP A skill to score the same as units with preference weapons. So now with the right investment, you can actually use like Pala with a Slaying Edge, for instance, with our dual flying and joint hone speed, which will give you the same amount of score as somebody who uses a preference weapon like Gunnthra, even though she has her own, which is White Wing Blade. With that said, I kind of just value Pala because the stat spreads are already fairly similar. The reason I chose like White Wing Blade on the build to the left is it's a ruby sword. So what do you do to fight against a triangle advantage or triangle disadvantage, which is really in your favor? Well, the idea there is you pretty much charge it on like a green unit or a red unit, charge your special that is, and once the special is charged, you use something like Blazing Wind, which cuts through triangle disadvantage, which you normally wouldn't have. And chill defense lowers the blue unit, let's say in question is defense, so you get some really good damage out of an AoE special. And that's kind of like the build I kind of want to showcase on the left, which could work with White Wing Blade to an extent. That's not something that I would really recommend with Gunnthra, but you know, she can't even use White Wing Blade. She could use Ruby Sword, but that can't be refined. So that's like something unique to Pal on the left. Other than that, yeah, Gunnthra is just another red sword flyer with a similar stat spread to Pala. And when you consider merges, it's very similar. Okay, next up is Laegjarn. So Laegjarn is our free Tempest Trials unit, and she's not a bad one. I think her stat spread is pretty cool. It's very defensive. It's also very fast. So what do we have as a defensive blue fast Cavalier unit? Yep, there he is. So very similar bulk. There's a couple of stats points missing between Oscar and Laegjarn. Oscar has a bit more HP, actually a lot more HP, and the thing is he has boons and banes, and the boons and banes really do help him out a bit. If you don't give him a bane, he actually has 45 HP, and this will cease to exist in the February update. And yeah, the bulk is pretty much almost the same, except Oscar has some res, and Laegjarn is a bit faster than him, which is useful, by the way. Laegjarn being a bit faster is useful for Gale Force build. So the build I've shown on the left with Oscar is something I would recommend if you want to just use Laegjarn as a budget non-merge unit. You just give her Slaying Lance, Gale Force, Fury, Desperation, Heavy Blade Seal, and like Savage Blow, and you got yourself a really reliable Gale Force unit that I would recommend using in Aether Raids, especially once she's a bonus unit. That'll get you a lot of value. But as a long-term Grail unit and a long-term mergeable unit, you're not really getting much of a difference than you would out of using somebody like Oscar, or even Able to another comparison there. Or even for something like Aether Raids, I honestly just recommend Parry, because Parry has good res, and good res is really useful for Aether Raids where a lot of the damage is magical. Having a low res stat is actually really detrimental for somebody like Laegjarn. So yeah, I'm not really a huge fan of that, but you know, the real appeal of Laegjarn has to be the Lance and the fact that that's chill defense. Now we have a supportive Lance option. She's got chill res in the B slot, so she's an absolutely great fodder unit, but as a long-term investment, not really going to do it for you. Highly recommend the blue Lance calves that are already pretty fast, already got decent attack stats, similar stat spreads. So that's going to be like Oscar, Parry, and Able. Even like Roderick is fine. Like there's so many more options that you're going to get out of the gacha when you summon blues that, you know, I just don't really recommend Laegjarn spending your grails on her. Like, not really a winner. I wanted to give also a different perspective on this, and Oscar can play the defensive role as well. And one advantage he has over Laegjarn is he actually has a serviceable res stat, a little bit better than Laegjarn. And this is, especially with, combined with his higher HP stat, really does go a long way. You can give him like Berkut's Lance. I mean, Laegjarn can run the same build, I do admit. But if you give him Berkut's Lance, he has a little bit more res bulk, and he has good defense bulk. So attack res bond, attack defense bond, Berkut's Lance, a little bit of investment like that, and you got yourself a fairly tanky blue Lance Cav. Just the same role as kind of like how Laegjarn could do. And he's still fast. His attack stat is about the same. So yeah, like, you know, those boons can really make a difference when it comes down to it like this. And of course, merge ability just means that you don't have to spend grails, you don't have to spend a lot of orbs to do something like this. Okay, so next unit is Fjorm. And to be honest, for you guys that did watch the impressions, I am actually, this is like the standout from the banner. It's a green bow flyer, and we don't have one in the game. So of course, I'm not really going to compare her to anything, and the only real thing you could really compare her to is like 5-star colorless flyers, which isn't really the same thing. 5-star colorless flyers are 5-star exclusive or seasonal, and yeah, it's just not really a notable comparison. So Fjorm is the actual winner from this banner for sure, for being the most unique, and therefore she can stand out on a team comp for being unique in that aspect. Like if you had a flyer team and you're missing like a green role on the team, like she'd be a pretty good fit for that. Definitely can do something there. And her stat spread is most noticeably more offensive than somebody like Legendary Lyn, so I do expect somebody like Fjorm to actually do damage. Unlike Lyn. Lyn was lacking because her skills were really odd. She had like fast speed, but lowish attack, a serviceable res stat. It was like, do you play on enemy phase? Do you play on player phase? We don't know. But Fjorm stat spread pretty much screams play on player phase. And as a result of that, you pretty much want to be using Fjorm on the player phase. So what do you do with a player phase range unit? Well, you give him Fury Desperation. Unfortunately, she can't use Flashing Blade, but she has enough attack with Heavy Blade to be proccing that off, especially if you give her like one buff, like one Hone Attack Tactic, or Hone Flyers, anything like that, which is not too bad to do. You definitely could be using something like this. If you don't want to use Heavy Blade, I mean, attack speed is also a good option. You change Moonbow to something like Draconic Aura, and you have yourself a decent unit there. She can use a lot of different builds, of course. You know, the flexibility with archers is you could keep her default bow if you want to give her more supportive role. You can give her a brave bow if you want her to carry with 3 dancers. There's a lot of cool things you can do here. So also on that note, if you do use Slaying Bow, you may not want to be using it with Desperation and Moonbow. If you do end up using something like the other bows, then Fury Desperation with Moonbow is better. But if you do end up using Slaying Bow, you may want to use like Draconic Aura for a 2-charge special combined with Heavy Blade. So Heavy Blade is the flex here, and you got to make sure you adjust it according to the special and such, and whether you can meet those attack requirements. Okay, but definitely the most unique unit, probably worth pulling out of the batch just for being unique. For fitting some sort of role. Unfortunately, the thing is, you probably have somebody that's green that already kind of fills a similar role, maybe doing like magical damage, and that's the difference there. But flyer mobility is awesome. Okay, next up we got Leyva Teen. So Leyva Teen is one of the other bundle units, and you know, just like some of the other units I mentioned, she is in a role that is not unique. It means that we do have actually a very comparable option to her, and that would be Priscilla. But the difference between Priscilla and Leyva Teen is Priscilla trades the defense stat for res in this case. They actually have a very, very similar stat spread, with Leyva Teen having a bit more attack, Priscilla just being 1 speed slower, but they pretty much swap their defense and res stats and a couple points here and there. So that makes Priscilla like your go-to option here because of the couple of merges. It just ends up being res. Now I want to point out, having a high res stat is really, I think it's more valuable than it is having a high defense stat for a range unit. The only value you really get out of a range unit having defense stat is if you try to buff them up or give them like close counter or something. And as a result of that, Leyva Teen could be useful as like a close counter Vantage like pain healer. That's pretty good. I think she'd be one of the best at doing that. But again, the thing is, with merges involved, you already have somebody like Priscilla could do the same thing. And if you use Vantage, does it really matter what your defensive stats are? It doesn't really matter. Or if it does, with low defense, you just want to hit Vantage range but not die. And with res, you know, you just need enough to not die in one hit. Reach Vantage range with pain, Savage Blow shenanigans, you reduce area to 1 HP, and you get your kills that way with like close counter Vantage. Of course, close counter is like what I would use on Priscilla, but I want to keep it a little bit at least budget friendly. Like close counter may not be for everyone. Even though everyone has Takumi for free, I don't really think that, you know, everyone might have it still. So if you get close counter, pain, Vantage healers, I definitely recommend building at least one for like ether raids, for other content as well. Arena Assault are really useful, but honestly Gravity gets the job done there too. So that's pretty much it for Leyva Teen. I think her staff is useful as inheritance, but again, I covered this in my impressions video yesterday. Okay, and finally we got Hrid over here. So Hrid is, again, he actually is even less unique than Gunnthra because he is like, he doesn't have a preference weapon. So, and because he's a 5-star locked unit, it just means like if you just merge up someone like Pala again, you get almost a similar stat spread, but you end up having high speed on Pala, and high speed means you can pretty much play on both phases. What I've shown on the build to the left with Pala is an enemy phase build. It uses bonds, quick riposte, and this is more useful on the enemy phase, but you do have the option of playing both phases if you adapt the build accordingly. So that's really what Frid brings to the table. He's got a good defense, low speed. Low speed could be used to get doubled and then charge your special faster. So for instance, Frid could run like a Slaying Edge Ignis build instead of Bonfire with Quick Riposte, and that's an advantage he has over Pala. That's pretty much the extent of how unique he can get though. I mean, he's probably pretty good with a Brave Sword because of his high attack, but again, you can use a White Wing Blade and like Brave Sword that way too, you know. So the difference there is almost, it's huge, the amount of difference in attack there, because White Wing Blade gives you so much if you meet that condition, and of course it gives you stats. There's a lot going for someone like Pala, who's in the 3 and 4 star pool, versus these new red flyers. So yeah, the seasonal banner overall does come down to pretty much just being like fan service, giving these OC characters a chance, and that's what I really appreciate about it, that they're just alternate versions made for the fans. Yes, OCs that finally get a bit of appreciation, so that's definitely what I appreciate here. All right guys, welcome to the mathematics on this brand new seasonal banner. For those that are not familiar, this gives you a better idea of what to expect when choosing to summon, if you choose to summon. Which, by the way, remember the banner lasts a full month, so consider your options fully between all available choices. And it looks like this banner should overlap with the Beast banner coming up in January, which could be very important. We have the anniversary coming up in February as well. It won't overlap with that, but we maybe could get a hint through like what the new update entails. They might do that through either a Fed channel or something like that. So that's also important. You may want to consider saving your orbs for. And finally, the legendary banner at the end of January should overlap with the seasonal banner. So you have tons of choices to make. It's currently overlapping with the current legendary banner. Definitely important that you do consider your options fully. Remember that in a full given month, we do have about 300 to 400 orbs given to us for free. So yeah, that does mean you should be very wary spending orbs, especially on something like day one, which I don't really recommend on such a long banner. Now, if you do value these units in one way or another, whether it's for endgame content or for being your favorites, then take a look at the math to the left. What I do want to take notice for you guys is that red is the most expensive option when it comes to summoning. Thankfully, we do have color sharing here, and color sharing is good. Color sharing is good. Color sharing means that if you're looking to target those brand new C skills that are 300 SP, you're in luck because it doesn't cost too many orbs. The average being about 94, 90th percentile being about 209. 90th percentile meaning there's like 1 in 10 people that spend about 200 orbs to get either Gunnthra or Hrid. That's what that means. Yes. Having the shared focus does mean you have a better chance of getting either of them. Now, if you're targeting a specific unit, that's where red suffers. Red is a very saturated pool. That means that the gacha makes it really difficult to get a specific focus in the red pool because there's so many options there. Green is good, so if you're looking for Fjorm, which was, in my opinion, the standout unit, it shouldn't cost you that much. It's almost like 20% less of an orb cost than what is required for a specific red here. But yeah, if you're targeting those level 3, level 4 skills, it's pretty good. Definitely also considering the free summon tickets which were given to us. Those free summon tickets are going to be great. I actually do recommend that it would be worth it to use your free summon tickets to maybe hit as many reds as you can if you do value those new skills. That is what I'll personally do. We get a few of them, so that's a good opportunity to do so. And then make sure you play it on based off that. I want to just go over a little bit on some efficiencies when it comes to summoning, and I haven't covered this in another video, but just a few quick tips. When it comes to just summons or free summons in general, the most value you get out of spending orbs for units, so without a ticket or free summon involved, is actually two units. Sorry, not 2 units. Sorry, with a free summon or free summon ticket, it's 2 units. What I'm saying here is if you free summon a unit, free summon into a circle, you use 15 orbs for all 5, right? But if you free summon and you pick 2 units, you get a free summon plus the next one costs 4. What this means is for spending orbs, you get 2 units for 2 orbs, which is more efficient than 5 units for 15 orbs. That's 3 orbs per unit. So if you want to get the most value out of spending orbs, 2 units is the best you can get. This doesn't apply to not the free summon, so I want to take that back for a bit. So yeah, that pretty much covers what I want to say about this banner. I hope that this was useful for you to take for maybe making a better decision, whatever that might be. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Please let me know in the comments below what you think of these units, maybe some build options that you're considering. I'd love to see it. And yeah, that pretty much covers it. Join the Discord if you have any more specific questions, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.